NIS 9 Monstrum Nox. This game was originally released back in September of 2019, but now Neon Falcom and NIS are giving the game an official PS5 release on May 9th in North America and May 12th in Europe. First and foremost, I want to give the publishers a big shout out and a huge thank you for giving me a review copy for the game. Over the last week, I've been able to play through the official PS5 release of the NIS 9, and about 43 hours later, and really as of about 10 minutes ago, I just finished the game, and I am incredibly excited to tell you about my experience with NIS 9 Monstrum Nox on the PS5. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to give you some context with my experience of playing the NIS games, I'm a big fan. I like every NIS game that I've played, some more than others. There are some that I have not played. The only two games in the series that I have not played and finished are NIS 7 and NIS 8. I know NIS 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, is constantly touted as one of the greatest JRPGs released within the last decade. I'm fully aware, I'm incredibly excited to play it, but thankfully, if you're new to the NIS series, or you just love action RPGs, or you love JRPGs in general, NIS is a series where you basically don't have to start anywhere specific. All of these games, yes, there is a chronology, there's a timeline in which the games take place, but you don't have to play them in chronological order or in numerical order in order to really appreciate these games. They're incredibly fun on their own. They work perfectly fine as individual starting points at each entry in the series. Yes, you'll pick up on little Easter eggs and like little nods here and there, but nothing so major. You're never going to finish a game and feel like, I really thought I was missing something huge. You're probably not. You can jump in anywhere, and NIS 9 is a fantastic starting point in the series. Another thing too, this is my very first playthrough of NIS 9. I never played it back when it originally came out on the PS4. I didn't play the Switch re-release. The PS5 version is the very first version of this game that I actually got to play for the very first time. So even though I haven't played that original PS4 version or played the PS4 version on the PS5, I've done enough reading online and videos and comparisons and things like that to have a pretty good understanding of what exactly is different about the PS5 version versus the other versions, and we will talk about all of that later in the video. But first and foremost, I just want to go ahead and talk about this game because it's the very first time that I've gotten to play NIS 9. Like I said, I just finished it. Like within the last half hour or so, the credits rolled. I had a really good time. This game was fantastic. If you've never played an NIS game before, maybe you're a huge fan of the NIS series and you haven't checked out 9, play 9. You should definitely play it. Hop in on 9 if it's the first time you're playing an NIS game. NIS 9 is well worth your time. And with that said, I want to talk about the stuff that I loved about this game. Let's talk about the good. And the first thing I want to touch on is the story, the narrative, the characters, the setting. So before we talk about that, let's first just talk about what this game is. In typical NIS fashion, you play as Adol the Red, Christin. Adol and his best friend, Dogi the Wall Crusher, arrive at Balduke City. And Balduke the city is essentially if Alcatraz was a city. It's a prison town. The biggest castle in the entire city is a gigantic prison. And the first thing Adol does as soon as he enters Balduke is get thrown into the prison wrongfully for basically having a lot of adventures in his past. While trying to make his escape out of the prison, he comes into contact with Aprilis, who for some reason shoots him with a gun and turns him into what is called a monstrum. Throughout the course of the game, you travel along with 5 other monstrum characters that you meet along the way as you discover what is going on, what are the monstrum, what is the Nox, and all of this other stuff. It's an incredibly engaging story. I'm not going to give anything more after that because I think that the story is worth experiencing firsthand. There's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of detective work that kind of goes on throughout the story, just trying to figure out what is going on. There's little, in the meantime, like while you're doing this other stuff is happening, you know, on the side. I don't want to give away that sort of stuff, but the whole narrative is incredibly captivating, and I personally really enjoyed the story, and I think that the narrative alone is worth asking price. And outside of the main story content, you know, the meat and potatoes of the narrative, there is plenty of side quest and side content to do in this game. There's plenty of dungeons to explore, and something that I personally really like about these side quests is that I think even though every now and then the gameplay within the side quests might feel mundane, might feel pretty fetch questy, stuff like that, overall, the narrative in each and every side quest, besides maybe one or two, pretty much every side quest in this game does an incredibly good job at building characters and building the world. Every time that I finished a side quest, every time that I did a main story mission, everything felt very interconnected. The side quests didn't feel like they were just way out of left field, like you're just helping some random people with their small business or something like that. No, everything feels like it's building up the character of the world of Balduke, this whole city. And Balduke itself, I really think, is a very lived-in world. You might get the impression that it feels kind of barren at first because you only have a few locations to kind of roam around in, but as the city expands, as you're accepting more side quests, as you're going through the story missions, the city opens up, more side quests open up, you really start to feel like this is a lived-in world. And personally, like I said, I haven't played Ys 8, so I can't really speak to that, but from playing Origins, through, you know, from 1 through 6, now getting here to number 9, it genuinely feels like the most lived-in Ys world that I have experienced. And I mentioned characters as well. I'm not going to go into too much spoiler detail about these characters. A lot of the plot of the story is really trying to figure out who these side characters are that you're playing with, who these other playable characters are. You know, I'm not going to give that stuff away, but the backstories to all of them and just getting to know them and understanding their personalities and just playing around with them and doing quests together. Just about every character in this game I absolutely adored. And, you know, not gonna lie, when I first started the game, I kind of looked at some of the characters and thought, okay, I mean, I see we're gonna go the sort of fan servicey route for some of these characters, but as you get to know them, you just forget about that sort of stuff because the characters themselves are just that good. You want to hear more about their life, you want to know what their dilemmas are, you want to help them out. These are characters that you really come to know, and by the end of the game, you felt like you kind of created a whole new family, and it was a little bittersweet towards the end, and I really enjoyed I loved the characters. I love the characters. And to touch a little on exploration in the game, when you start the game, you basically have no abilities whatsoever. And this is a game where even though you start off as the weakest creature in the world, by the end of this game, you feel like you can just take on anything that moves around you. The game does an incredibly good job at making you feel like you have truly progressed, not just in the story, but as a playable character. It does a fantastic job at that. One of your first major abilities that you get is this kind of zipline ability that you have where you can look at the top of a building and a little red glowing light will appear and you press R2 and then you zoom right up there and you can kind of zoom across the city by using this zipline feature. The more you progress in the story, the more characters you will obtain into your party, and each character has a unique way of traveling the world. And as you recruit these characters into your party, you don't have to play as a specific character in order to use their ability. Adol himself will take their main mode of transportation and sort of include it into his repertoire of movement abilities in traversing the world. So eventually you kind of feel like Batman in the Arkham games where you can zip line to tops of buildings and glide down from building to building and run up walls and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that stuff. I thought that it was an incredibly fun way of just expanding the different modes of transportation and exploration in the game. Each of the characters in this game has a different weapon that they use and a different mode of attacking, and I'm telling you guys, you are going to be swapping characters a ton in this game. Whether it's to hit enemy weaknesses or just to wipe out whole screens of enemies, you're going to be swapping in and out of all these different kinds of characters at many points throughout the game, and it really does just feel like a good time to just be swapping in and out and using all these different combos. It looks good, it feels good. I just really like the combat in this game. And one thing that I like about this game kind of distinctly from the other Ys games, it's the art direction, it's the art style, it's that sort of gothic setting, it's the Balduc prison, that dark, red, moody, kind of vampire Castlevania type setting. I really like the way that the game looks. I like the way that it presents itself, the way the city is interconnected with all the dungeons and how all the dungeons are interconnected with the main prison in Balduc. I just really like the direction that they went as far as designing this world and how the dungeons connect to each other. I think it's a really cool idea. But those are all of the things that I can confidently say that I really did love about Ys 9 Monstrum Nox. Now, keep in mind, this game is not perfect, just like every other game out there. There's some things I didn't like, there's some things I really liked. Let's go ahead and talk about the mixed feelings that I had with this game. So the first thing that I want to talk about in this section is the music. And I think the music in this game is really good. I think it's totally fine. I could definitely listen to the soundtrack, you know, if I'm just doing other stuff. I think the soundtrack is absolutely serviceable. I did not hate it whatsoever. But the biggest disappointing thing is that I didn't really love it. And that's something that I can't necessarily share with the other Ys games. I think that the other Ys games have incredible, very memorable soundtracks. And the thing about Ys 9's OST is I can't really, even just now after finishing the game, I couldn't hum a tune or something like that from this game, and I just played it for 43 hours just within the last week. I have this game very fresh in my mind, and the music is just not there. It just doesn't really click for me. Like I said, I think the music is good. Personally, I want to say that the more mellow tracks that you hear kind of in towns or whenever you're just having conversations with people or big emotional moments are happening, those more subtle, more soft, more pretty pieces, if you will, I think that those tracks are really good, and they do kind of stand out, but it's just not really memorable. It's not, there's not like a one theme or one battle song from the game that you're just going to be humming all day long to yourself, like something like Final Fantasy VII. You got that battle theme stuck in your head. This game just did not do it for me, and that was very frustrating as someone who loves the soundtracks to all of the Ys games. Another thing I want to touch on with this game is the difficulty, and I personally thought that this game was way too easy. I thought it was a complete cakewalk, and I know that that's going to be an issue for a lot of people, you know, playing an action RPG game. Granted, I played it on normal difficulty. This is the default setting. As soon as you click new game, the default option that the cursor is already on is normal. Now, to be fair, there's like 5 or 6 other difficulty settings after normal that just get harder and harder, like nightmare mode and like insanity mode or something like that. The game can probably get really hard, but that's not what I played, and it's probably not what a lot of first-time players are going to be choosing as well. I played on normal mode. Whenever you click the option, it just basically says something along the lines of, you know, for players who want to experience the story and have a decent amount of challenge at the same time and just, you know, play through the Ys game. I think that's a fair statement. But like I said, I thought that this game was just way too easy. And not just easy in the way where you feel like, you know, oh wow, I'm really good at this game. No, it's more like I just killed every enemy that came at me, and by the end of the game, I was almost level 100 just for killing the enemies that came at me as I was progressing through the story and just doing all of the side quests in the game. You know, it's not really one of those things where, oh, I'm overleveled because I'm grinding so much. No, I felt really powerful by the end of the game because I was just playing the game like normal, and I never died. I never died in the game even one time. it was a complete cakewalk, and I can definitely see why a lot of people might look at that and say, oh, well, you know, this is actually a good thing because I just want to experience the story. I don't ever want to have to go and grind. I just want to be able to start the game and finish the game and just boop, 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 just walk through the game. Fair enough. There are people out there who want to do that. Maybe that's you. If so, awesome. If that's not you and you want a challenge, I would definitely click a harder difficulty when choosing your setting at the very beginning. Another mixed feeling that I had with the game came from the Grimwald Nox missions. I totally understand, I totally get that they're kind of designed to be this arcade style tower defense mission system, but I personally just felt that each time that you broke up the game to go do these Grimwald Nox missions, it all kind of felt a little samey. It felt like I was just doing the same thing over and over again, and like I said with the difficulty, it just felt like the game wasn't necessarily getting harder, the game was just getting longer and longer because each time you would do a Grimwald Nox mission, they would add another wave or something like that, and I just personally didn't have a great time doing the Grimwald Nox missions because it just felt so repetitive. And the last thing I'll talk about as far as mixed feelings goes is the amount of dialogue that is in this game. Like I said, all of the story that's in this game, all of the world building that it does, I think it does really well. I was interested, but boy, oh boy, is there a lot of dialogue in this game. You basically are watching more cutscenes and having to read more dialogue than you are actually playing through the game itself. That's kind of just how I feel whenever I'm looking at it right now. Maybe there was an equal amount of gameplay and cutscenes, but man, I really felt like every single time that I was picking up the controller to do something, I was immediately met with another cutscene, another wall of text that I had to read or something like that. And like I said, I think the story here is really good. There's just so much conversation happening, and sometimes even if the world isn't being built through the dialogue, through the conversation, there's still just like little character moments where they'll be riffing at each other, stuff to build characters up to some degree. But if you're just trying to get to the end of the game, you're just trying to get to that next chapter, complete this mission, get the reward or something like that, you don't really care about what's going on, there is a ton of dialogue that I can definitely see a lot of people skipping on because there's just so much of it. So let's go ahead and jump into the bad. We already talked about the stuff I liked, we talked about the stuff that I'm kind of flip-flopped on. Let's talk about the stuff that I did not like. And first and foremost, I'll just talk about the bugs that I had, the little visual glitches, things like that. There were a few times here and there, nothing totally game breaking, but because this is a game that came out in 2019 and this is the official PS5 release of this game, the bugs that I was encountering, the little flickers, the popping in and out of, you know, NPCs and stuff like that, it got on my nerves. I was a little like, really guys? This is the official PS5 version of the game, and we're still dealing with like pop-in, like this is a PSP game? I didn't understand that. Hopefully, once this game is officially out, they will patch all that stuff in. I'm not totally sure because the other thing I want to talk about here is just the idea of this PlayStation 5 version. So if you're familiar with the different editions of Ys 9 that were released in the past, this PlayStation 5 package is essentially the digital deluxe edition of Ys 9. It includes the base game, as well as all of the DLC, which are the cosmetic items and the consumable items. The PlayStation 5 version does not include anything substantial as far as new story content, side quests, or other little pieces of DLC here and there. This is seriously just the digital deluxe edition of Ys 9. And if you already own a copy of Ys 9, whether it be digital or on a disc, if you play that version on the PlayStation 5, the PS5 already boosts it up to 60 frames a second and upscales it to 4K. And with the SSD that's included in the PlayStation 5, it will boost the load times of the PS4 version on the PS5. And I say all that because, realistically speaking, this PlayStation 5 version is literally just the original Ys 9 PS4 version, but played on a PS5. If you have the PlayStation 4 Digital Deluxe Edition of Ys 9 and you play it on your PS5, then you have the PS5 version of Ys 9. And I don't mean that you automatically get an upgrade to the PS5 version. No, if you have the PS4 version and you want the official PS5 version, you still have to buy the full-priced PS5 version. There is no upgrade path if you already own the PS4 version. I'm telling you guys, this is the same game. There are essentially no differences at all between the PS4 version played on a PS5 and the PS5 version. These are the same game. I hope I'm articulating this issue that I have with the PS5 version pretty well to you guys, because look, if you guys want my honest recommendation here, if you already own the PS4 version of Ys 9, I don't see any reason why you should buy the PlayStation 5 version. Really, the only difference between the base version of the PS4 version and the base version of the PS5 version is that the base version of the PS4 version does not include the DLC. The base version of the PS5 version does include the DLC. All of the DLC, like I said, just cosmetic stuff. Different outfits, different skins for your weapons and things like that. Some are consumable items as well, but realistically, if you want my honest opinion here, I would not recommend you actually pay money to get those consumable items, because every item that you get in that DLC set is very, very easily obtainable from just playing the game. So if you have the Digital Deluxe Edition of Ys 9 on PS4, don't buy the PS5 version. They're the same game. But if you've never played Ys 9 before and you have a PS5 and you want to check out Ys 9, sure, go ahead and buy the PS5 version. Honestly, buy whichever version is cheapest, because like I said, the PS4 version played on a PS5, it's just the PS5 version. It's just not something that I can recommend to someone who already owns the game, who wants to play it on their PS5, because you already own the game. That's it. You have the PS5 version if you have the PS4 version. I didn't mean to go so rambly and kind of ranty about this one specific thing, but it's kind of an issue that I have, not just with NIS or Falcom or the E series or anything like that, but just kind of this idea of making an official PS5 version of a game when really there's no changes being made, other than it just being a blatant cash grab. I just don't know why publishers are pushing these games into people's hands if they already own the original game. But guys, with all of that out of the way, my rant, everything that I loved about the game, I think that Ys 9 Monstrum Nox is a must-play action RPG. If you like the E series or you just like action RPG games, pick up Ys 9, especially if you don't already have it on PS4 and you've never played it before. Yeah, go ahead and pick up the PS5 version. Why not? It has all the DLC, it's all cosmetic, there's a few consumable items. Go ahead and pick that up if you want all of that extra content for the PS5. However, if you own the PS4 version, especially if you own the Digital Deluxe Edition of the PS4 version, I would not waste your money buying the PlayStation 5 version. If you have the PS4 version, you have the PS5 version. So with all that said, guys, let me know down in the comments below whether or not you are planning on playing Ys 9 on the PS5. Again, thank you so much to the developers and the publishers for giving me a code for the game. I had a blast playing through it this past week. It seriously was a game that I've been trying to get to on my list for so long, and with the PS5 version out, I was able to play it. Thank you guys so much for that. Let me know again down below whether or not you are planning on picking up this version or not. And with all of that said, I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.